I don't know what's worse, the wind or these gnats. You know, you get one or you get the other, so.
Hi, Phil Long, Regional Agronomist here with Liqui-Grow.
Hi, I'm Katie Hess, Director of Sales and Marketing here at Liqui-Grow. Phil, can you believe that it's been almost a year since you've been on board with the team?
It's been really fast. It's
yes.
a good thing.
That means you must be having fun if time goes fast, right?
Yes.
And you kind of cover from our territory for like helping the guys from like 30 on up. So you'll handle a lot of the Traer, Clear Lake, Hampton region.
Yep.
But you do float down and around when Jake can't get to what he needs to be doing.
Yeah, kind of the west side of the Liqui-Grow territory.
So hopefully you've met Phil by now if you're within that geography, and not, you know, get him out to your farm, have him help the guys scout if they've got any problems. So we just kind of are coming off of a cool period. And what are some of the things that you've been out scouting for? What are guys calling you about?
Yeah, it seems like everybody's just kind of worked up about how things have slowed down. You know, I was looking at the GDUs and looking back to April when a lot of guys started planting that first nice window soil temp and soil condition wise, like April 10th to the 20th roughly. And that week there, we had more GDUs than we had this last week. So this last week we had 50 to 60 GDUs up in the north central part of the state, which is not even enough to get a corn leaf out. It takes about 85 GDUs to get a corn leaf stage out at this point. So things are just sitting there. The early planted stuff looks the best, I would say, because it was bigger. You know, and it's able to get a leaf out, has more material, looks better in the field. But those smaller plants just look a whole lot smaller, so throwing one leaf out. Everything takes a smaller plant, less photosynthesis, and a lot more cloud cover and less GDUs. So everything's just really slow right now. It's frustrating to watch. I think it's kind of in general terms, what everybody's talking about.
If you do have your chemical on at this point for second pass on corn and it's just sitting there, how is the crop responding? What about the weed control?
Yeah, it's the same thing. Everything's going to go slow. So, you know, if you put something on there that might ding the crop a little bit more, it's going to metabolize it slower. Same thing with the weed. You know, uptake's going to be slower. If it's a weed that's more tolerant of certain herbicides, you know, it's not good for that. Obviously, you want the plant to take it up quickly so that it dies, you know, faster and doesn't have time to get around it and form resistance. But yeah, in general, it's just everything's slower. It's better when it's warmer temperature.
Well, and that's coming, Phil. It looks like this weekend we're gonna have some warmer temperatures. We're gonna have a lot of sunshine, so the crop's gonna start growing very fast again. As guys get back into the field and start that second pass herbicide application, what should they be thinking about as they're mixing those chemicals together? Should we make any changes? Sometimes the plant, you know, the cuticle layer changes as it gets cooler or warmer. Do you want to talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, I mean, in general, it's a good thing, the heat and everything, especially if we're spraying beans. In most cases, I don't think we're quite to bean post-spraying unless you did a 2-pass in season. I know a lot of people are going to that. The heat is good for a lot of those chemicals. You can obviously burn things a little bit easier too, so, you know, with crop oils and such when it's hotter. So, you know, be aware of that. But in general, it's a good thing. We want it to be hotter rather than cooler this time of year when we're trying to do post sprays, because it helps us kill the weeds effectively.
Phil, I know that you talked about this wind that we just experienced here this last week and what I would call some of the sand blasting that's happened to the crops. Can you elaborate a little bit on that for the folks?
Yeah, especially where it's flat, we had quite a bit of sand blasting, and I know yesterday when I was out, you could see even in the residue, you could see beyond the piece of corn stalk or whatever, the pile of sand and silt laying there. So there's a lot of evidence of that blowing across the field. It's been blowing really hard in the last week or two, and we definitely seen some of that. Corn and beans. I've seen some tattered leaves, because as that residue flies across the field at 50 miles an hour, it can tear up a lot of stuff. And unfortunately, you know, we've had this, it seems like the last several years. The smoother the surface of the field, the more stuff's going to fly, the faster it's going to fly. Tears up the leaves. Obviously, open wounds this time of the year is not ideal. We don't want fungus and other bacteria or things getting started in the plant, so any open wound is not ideal. Just like a hailstorm, we don't want to see that, but just keep that in mind if your plants are damaged. You know, a lot of those plants were laying over and stuff shortly after that wind, so we see the evidence of it. Just keep in mind that the plant is obviously damaged from that, and then slow growth on top of it. So
okay, so you're talking about these damaging plants and open wounds. Is this to qualify for like a V5 fungicide treatment, or is that some, like, when would you use a V5 fungicide treatment in your mind?
I don't know that it's been researched a lot in terms of after wind events, but I would say in general, no. I mean, a V5 early fungicide application is ideal if you have something like anthracnose in a corn on corn or heavy pressure field that has a lot of anthracnose pressure. because that foliar, early stage foliar part of anthracnose can turn into issues later in the season. But in general, the V5 application is not typically returned. So I would say no. I haven't seen, it's hard to say. Every year is different. But in general, the plant will likely outgrow it as long as we don't get a lot of infection right now. We should be all right.
Okay, Phil, so my last question for you is, as we look out a little bit farther here, we're going to get into the fungicide season. And, we hear a lot about pre-tassel fungicide, that V8 or V15-ish before tassel,
Yeah.
or just go straight to the R1. What's kind of your thoughts, or tell us a little bit about that?
And I feel like Tar Spot brought this on a little bit. People are pushing that, trying to get 2 passes in, and a lot of people push two applications. The research that's out there still shows 1 well-timed application is still best, even for Tar Spot. So, pushing it that early, in my mind, it doesn't typically give you a strong return unless there's disease. There's always a caveat, unless you have strong disease pressure there in your field. So it's a field-by-field situation. But in general, especially when that ear's trying to develop, I really shy away from that, because that's where we can have issues like arrested ear development, or abnormal ears in general, because it messes with the corn trying to develop those kernels long. So around that R1, the tassel R1 time frame is still the best to get that coverage, that 25, 30, 35 days, to really do the best for that particular, every fungicide's different, but you want to see it utilized the best, and that's typically when we have the most pressure, the humidity issues, all the things, stars align, I guess you could say. So in general, I would say, unless you have a strong pressure showing up on the leaves, that V8 to even up to V15 is probably not worthwhile.
Yeah, so what you're saying is, if you know that your environment is going to require a fungicide anytime from V8 on, follow the proper instructions. Make sure you're not using the NIS.
Yeah.
Make sure you're using the right labeled products.
And a lot of those NIS products are much safer than they used to be, so that's good. It's just a matter of if you have it in your field. And I know that always upsets people. I got to go scout, but if you have pressure in that field, it's corn on corn, or all the certain factors, check all those boxes, then go check that field, because maybe it would pay off, and it could pay off big. But yeah, it's just a matter of if you're just doing it prophylactically, I would not encourage the earlier time frame, because typically later in the season we have more pressure, more environmental conditions that line up.
Sure. Well, thanks for joining us today, and congratulations on being here for a whole year on the team.
Thank you.
I don't know what's worse, the wind or these gnats. You get one or you get the other. So hope everybody has a great day at home.
Stay in the know with Liqui-Grow.